This woman was a warrior for children and children welfare. She was a state senator, and this woman was murdered. This woman was in the middle of making a documentary that would expose Title 4D and the effects that it has on making the children's services in every single state of our nation have to kidnap children from poor families in order to make their money. In order to get reimbursed by Title 4D, they have to take only poor children into foster care. And guess what?
What?
It worked. Only poor and disabled children in every state of our nation are in foster care. This is not a coincidence, folk. This is targeting the poor and underserving everybody else. So, in 2015, I came here and I stayed in the William Penn Hostel House because that's all I could afford. I started going door to door to our state senators, all 100 of them. I didn't realize how many more times that I would be doing this. But I came there and I talked to Senator Wyden's assistant, Laura Hatch, and she said, put it in writing, girl. Put your money where your mouth is. And so I told her I would do that, and I wrote up a brand new Title 4E, getting rid of all of the bad things, such as a bonus that is paid to the county DSHS office in the tune of $5,000 to $20,000 for every single poor child, and it has to be poor. In other words, mom or dad on food stamps, that's what qualifies it as poor. These children are being targeted for foster care. And up until January 3rd of this year, when the Right to Light case number 15-55563, the states really were not sure constitutionally if they had the right to lie and plant evidence in family court in order to take your children. Let me repeat this. January 3rd this year was the Right to Lie case in the 9th Federal District, number 15-55563. In this case, the question was asked, do the states have the right to lie, that is, plant evidence in your court case? Lie with the intent, specifically, of taking your children away from you. This court started 17 years ago, and it took 16 years to break out of the state court because, of course, the states really did not want this to hit federal. And what did the judges say to this? They said, hell no! You cannot lie and plant evidence in order to take somebody's children, even if they're poor, and your office will shut down if you don't. It's a bad system. This is how Title 4E is written. And so I went office to office to office. Then I called the grandmas and the, associate grandmas, people who are just fighting for child justice. And we grouped together and we did demonstrations and we did marches, just like Nancy told us to. We took up the torch. We were not going to see our grandchildren being taken away from our families, destroyed, put into foster kids. Foster homes are nothing but training grounds for prostitution, and the senators know that. The problem was that the senators had absolutely zero, this is Congress, zero ability to pass laws. They were frozen. But this year, something miraculous has happened. Now, the way that our government works is more or less on a tripod, no matter what it is. So now that Trump is acting erratically with very, equal player sides, the Dems and the Republicans are getting together. I've been out here lobbying forever. It's been almost an entire decade since the legislative aides have actually been going to each other's offices and talking about things. I've been working with one gal who didn't even know the way to the other party's office. And these folks they're wearing the carpets out, guys. They're lobbying right now for change of so many things. They're getting things through like they have never done before, and it's a very bad way of making sausage, although I woke up 4 weeks ago and the law that I wrote in draft form and gave to Laura Berestein, and I am not an elected official, I am a grandmother who was not going to let her grandchildren go into foster care when they had a loving family member at home. I went and I cried and I went and I talked and I went and I got blisters. And 4 weeks ago, I woke up and I rolled over to my husband and I said, I just had the best dream of my life. I believe that I dreamed that the president has signed the Family First Act, and now it is law of the land. And it is a dream, but it is also reality. It is. And let me explain this law in a nutshell. Title 4D is the funding that gives social workers bonuses for putting children, and only poor children, into foster care. Bonuses for doing this. Families do not get paid. Families are not considered. If you're poor and you have any sort of social problem, if there's a foster care home available, that's where you go. And what's even worse, and this is what got changed, of the $10 billion that the Family First Act covers, $9 billion went to group homes. So guess what? Senator Hatch has been working to close down the group homes, which are essentially prostitute training grounds, for 4 years. He subpoenaed Children's Services. They asked, but because the way the funding structure goes of the 302A, it was just rolling. He had no ability to stop it because they had given away the power of the purse. They had to wait until this year to change Title 4E because the contract expired. That's the only reason that this thing got go through. It wasn't because HHS has the best interest of children involved. And it's not because our senators didn't want to do it, at least a handful of them. It's because they could not muster the power together to get it through Congress. But now things are completely different, and we're seeing more acts go through in these last 3 months than we have in the last 10 years. So this is an interesting time in Washington, D.C., and I am here to announce to Nancy Schaefer, the Title 4E monster is dead.
Yay!
It's dead. Title 4D is dead.
Woo-hoo!
They killed it. They got rid of it. They even have a new name. It's not called Title 4E anymore. It's just called Title 4. Okay? So now we're looking at another problem that Nancy was also working on. It's an identical twin in a different house from the same set of parents that's causing the same evil all over our nation in even a bigger way. And it is called the Title 4D funding. And what that funding does is it does one thing. Its purpose is one thing and one thing only. And that is to take money from the custodial parent and give it to the non-custodial parent. Sounds great, right? But this is what is happening, folks. Title 4D, just like Title 4E, only gets paid for poor children. Title 4D is now targeting military fathers.
Oh my God.
Almost every single person who is in jail because of Title 4D from non-child support is ex-military. They're targeting these people. They're deep pockets, and they have access to their medical records. So, if you are a military father and you have you are our brave heroes. You went to war for us. You were exposed to killing and horrific things that I could not imagine. And if you came home with post-traumatic stress syndrome, guess what? That's now a preemptive diagnosis to take your children away. The act of being a warrior and coming home with empathetic feelings called post-traumatic stress syndrome is excuse enough to take your children away.
Yet it's not a mental disease.
This is sick, folks. It is sick, 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 sick. We have so many problems that are affecting our children that we are not allowed to have solutions for, and I'm going to give you a really important one next. I'm a nurse and a sociologist. I have been a member of the Kaiser research team for a decade. I was a nurse who started the SIDS Back to Sleep program. Emails were brand new, cool emails. We had one at work. So all I did was I emailed the head of JACO, which is the body who inspects hospitals, and I said, you need to include SIDS training, teaching on your sheet when you come and inspect the hospitals. They did it. SIDS Back to Sleep was formed, nurses got trained, and the SIDS plummeted. I still have that email. So never think that what you're doing is not going to affect change. But back to the Title 4D issues that are going on, or excuse me, I was going to talk about how a different issue that's looped into this in terms of child stuff. Yesterday, I attended the March for Our Lives, and I am so excited that our children are getting involved because our children really are the ones who are getting harmed by government mismanagement of our federal dollars. Now, as a scientist, I look at things scientifically. And what I did was I put together a think tank to look at this violence in schools issue. And what we came up with was that of all of the violence episodes in school, of the mass shootings or mass violence, 100% of them were male. 100% of them were taking psychotropics, which, by the way, are being handed out like candy right now. 1 out of 5 young men in cities are taking a psychotropic in high school right now. So here we go. It's males and it's psychotropics. Those are the only two things that are 100% factors that we can find that binds this issue together. So logically what you would do is you would see, gee whiz, what do males have that girls don't? How about testosterone, right? Is there an association between psychotropics and testosterone surge? That would make it an adverse drug reaction, right? 100% of the kids were on psychotropics. But Congress, in its great wisdom, in 1980, passed an act that CDC nor any other government-sponsored, federally funded research facilities are able to study the reactions between drugs and gun violence. So here we have it, 100% males, 100% on psychotropics, possible drug interaction. But what do? We blame it on guns. So then we looked at guns. All right, maybe there's something to that. So the premises is that if children were not allowed access to guns, then gun violence in school would go down. That's easy enough to study and look at. So what we did was we just looked at those children who grew up with easy access to guns, and it was primarily hunting children who had, by the way, an inverse relationship to their likelihood of being a shooter and on psychotropics. That's why you don't take two facts and make a solution out of it. By those two facts alone, we should start arming the children and the school shootings would go down, which is not correct. But we need to look at this. Children who are males, who are on psychotropics, who are teenagers, who have impulsive thoughts of violence, who do not have the empathy cells to regulate it and stop themselves, are going to continue to commit acts of violence, whether it's guns or poisons or bombs. We need to realize and address the problem that too many of our darn males are on psychotropic. 1 in 5 on some sort of psychotropic in our high schools is unacceptable.
Yes!
So, back to Title 4D. I'm calling to Congress this summer in June. I'm going to call a squad of geeks who want to get together. I was looking at you. I want to call together all geeks who are interested in getting together and actually reading the Title D that is still currently the law of the land. We need to read it. We need to understand it. I have all the congressional contacts we need to make them explain it to us, because it's written in a foreign language, in essence, which is how they keep the people from being able to understand our acts. When you pick these acts up, first of all, they're so hard to get to, it's ridiculous. But when you pick them up and start to read them, trust me, I've actually had a rocket scientist try to read it. And you can't. It's so many references and do this and do that thing. It's actually done that on purpose so that we can't understand it, but we do have access to the folks who do interpret it and can help us to understand it. And we need to understand it inside and out so that we can kill it. We need to dissect the Title 4D so they stop putting our dads in prison. Our prisons are now full of ex-military heroes who got behind on child support and are now in contempt of court and in prison because of Title 4D. This thing is a monster. All Title 4D, its only function is to take money from one parent and give it to the other. And right now, this is what the percentage is, 20. For every dollar collected, and this is just the dollars from the dad, this is not including the Title 4E money that they get. For every dollar that is collected for a dad, only 20% goes to a human being. They're a collection agency. What are they doing putting dads in jail? There are better ways to do this. There are more efficient ways to do this. There are more humane ways to do this. I believe that one of the first things that we should look at is the marriage contract in itself. This is a contract that is required by our government in order to be married. The government has written the contract, and then when it fails, they administer the failure and profit off of it. Does anybody see a problem with that? Yes, big problem. So this is a contract, the marriage contract that we are engaging in, but let's give a different example. Let's say it's a car, and you're buying a car, but this car had a 50% rate of failure. Would you sign a contract for a car with a 50% rate of failure, especially if the dealership then got to administer, how you do or do not pay for it and the repairs and on and on and on and on you go. But that's in essence what we're doing with our dads now. And we need to stop it. It's really very corrupt. We have a very high imprisonment rate in America, and people really are pointing all kinds of fingers at all kinds of things. But the truth is, the culture has changed. They're picking on military. When you go to look at the homeless folk out there, right? Go to any major street in America and just ask them if there are prior military, and easily 80% of them are prior military. If prior military are only 5 or 10% of our population, why is there such a high number of military? It's because these guys are getting raped of all of their money. They're getting preemptively kicked out of their family for a post-traumatic stress syndrome diagnosis, and there is nowhere for them to turn. Nowhere. Every county in the nation now depends upon a certain amount of divorce to keep its budget balanced.
Become a business.
Think about that. Well, I think I'm probably done for now. Does anybody have any questions about the Title 4D or anything? The Title 4E, the basic changes are this. This is the easiest way to understand it. Like I said, there's $10 billion in the social services, right? $9 billion of that went to group homes. $9 billion out of $10 billion of our Title 4E money went to group homes. So Congress, in its wisdom, just stopped funding it. So now that money will go up front, And the other thing that they almost forgot about was the AFTA. Now, the AFTA is the money that they give for bonuses to the counties when they adopt poor children, not to their family, but only to strangers. They told me they were going to take care of it. And they did. They increased it. So back again we went last year. And then they did in the Family First Act, because we went and we said, you guys, you got this wrong. We don't want the Adoption and Safe Family Act. It sounds like a nice title, but it's really, really bad. So in Title 602, they put it on hold and they're going to study it. So, and then last Friday when the president signed the bill, there was also an act that is going to pay up the states in terms of financially separating them from it and getting out. They're gonna phase it out now. So they had to give them a bulk of funds to do that. But go ahead.
Getting back to
Hold on,
the
come
kids
here.
that committed school shootings.
Right.
Is there might.
Come here.
Okay, we've got a question about the school shootings. Go ahead.
Getting back to the school shootings, are there any statistics on the boys who committed the shootings? What percentage of those boys have been adopted or are in foster care?
Okay. I don't know that specific one because it's not attainable. Okay?
Yeah.
They're not. That's a privacy issue. Okay, so it's not attainable. But we do know is that there has been quite a few people who have done, with what they can tell, that the ACE scores are extraordinarily high in these children. These children do not have fathers in the home generally. They don't have their original fathers in the home. They are on medication. I believe it's probably the last shooting we know, he had been in the system under the 4D, but I don't know the answer to your question specifically. I really look forward to finding out, though. I mean, we're going to soon get a whole bunch of data, and it's no coincidence that now I'm going to tell you guys about something else that just scared the hell out of me. About 3 months ago, I was doing some research. I was going to be coming to Washington, D.C., and I was looking at the death rate of young women who are 14 years old to 18 years old. And when I crossed, and I was able to get it not by hospital level, but by actual address, I found some obscure data. And in Washington, D.C., the death rate of young women, 14 to 18, was so high as to be statistically impossible. There was no way per capita that the death rate could have gone up that rate long. It scared me so bad when I ran over that statistic, I grabbed my phone and I went Facebook Live. And my little grandson was there and he asked me, why are you doing that, Grandma? And I go, because this is really, 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 really bad, honey, and I've got to go see somebody about this number. And so I went over just a few feet away and Kyle's in there and he goes, Grandma, he goes, the numbers are changing.
She is not camera shy, ladies and gentlemen.
And so as we were sitting there, the numbers of the deaths of women that were reported, the young girls in Washington, D.C., after I went Facebook Live, within 10 minutes, they were taken off of the internet. They were taken off of the research site. I wrote down what I had, and it is really odd, guys. The death rate of young women in 14 goes up and down with the cycle of whether there is a Democrat or a Republican, and it is happening just before the Republican or Democrat enters. So it's not the actual body of politic, but for some reason it's a bizarre relationship. And the only thing that I could think of was the ambassadors in Washington, D.C., which have immunity, which I just heard this morning they're starting to kick the Russian ambassadors out. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the death rate is here around Washington, D.C. next year, now that we're having mass kick out of the Russian ambassador. So that's going to be interesting, too. I'm done. Sorry that I took so long, but I'm really passionate about this, guys, and we're all going to make a difference. We all are going to kill the monster. We're all going to use our different talents to do it. We are. We just are. Thank you.